Gloria Strode, and welcome to Straightforward. Today I'm visiting with my wonderful friend who has been in the vineyard just year after year serving the least of them. Neil, I have missed you.
It's been a while.
It has. And the last time you and I sat, you were still at the jail, Muscogee County Jail, and you had wonderful programs and outreach going on there, wearing many hats in the community. Your own testimony is a very powerful one. So I just want you to introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself, and then we have new people that's moved into the area since we visited last. So share with our audience what you do, how you started, and this long journey where you have been changing lives of our people.
Well, all stories have to start at the beginning.
Yes.
So my beginning is when Jesus Christ jumped into my life after a 30-year cocaine addiction.
Really?
Been homeless. I'm from Miami, Florida.
Miami, okay.
I lived in homeless shelters in Miami. I struggled and made a fool of myself on the streets of Miami. And then God started cleaning me up and then wanted me to move to Columbus, Georgia.
Really?
And so I moved up to Columbus, Georgia.
So he had a plan and a purpose for you, always.
That's right.
Even in the 30 years of the cocaine addiction and on the streets of Miami.
You know, I don't tell a lot of people this, but my grandmother, bless her heart, prayed every day on her knees that God would take that poison out of me.
That desire for that.
And she told me that God said yes on day one. He's still waiting for you to wise up.
Really? A wise woman. Yes, yes.
And unfortunately, she passed before I got myself clean and started moving in the right direction. But I'm completely convinced that every now and then God pulls her over to the curtain, pops it over.
Oh,
and says,
absolutely.
there's your answer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes,
So we moved to Columbus, Georgia, and Rob Dahl. Rob Dahl was
used
a
to be
dear
Rob
friend.
Dahl
That's
Nissan.
right.
Yes, he used to own a car lot.
Well, he was a dear friend of mine from JC's in Florida.
Really?
He heard that I had gotten sick with a staph infection and was having trouble rehabbing and finding work. And so Rob said, move to Columbus, work at the car dealership.
Really?
And he said, and I'm the only person that offered you a job that if you can't come to work, I won't fire you while you're going through rehab.
How amazing. I never knew that about Rob Dahl. And one of my childhood friends, Johnny Christian, worked with him for many years. Yeah, we grew up from the same neighborhood and went to school. So Rob gave you that opportunity.
That's how God got me to Columbus, Georgia.
See, that was a part of that bigger plan.
That's right.
Yes.
So I got here, and it wasn't long before I was working on his car lot, helping sell cars. And then God started to put it on my heart to be a volunteer in the jail.
Okay. So you started at the jail as a volunteer. There was no chaplain.
There was no program.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, back then there were 6 men and 2 women that showed up on Sunday to try to bring a message into some of the cell blocks.
Really?
In the jailhouse. Yeah,
and so when was your first time going into the Muscogee County Jail as a volunteer?
February of 09.
09. Wow, that's way back.
And so God started putting on my heart that this is not enough. And so I talked to my pastor, we talked to, well, it ended up being Johnny Flakes, Jr. and the third.
Okay.
Roy
Plummer, Pastor Plummer, right, who's a retired military person,
That's
right?
Colonel is a chaplain. Roy, and then Jimmy, Hal Brady,
Okay.
St.
Luke.
Rich Martindale from then at Trinity Episcopal, and Chuck Hasty over at First Presbyterian.
All right.
And we all got
so
together.
You all blazed that trail.
And said, let's do this thing. And so we went and talked to the sheriff at the time and said, why don't you start a chaplain's office?
Right.
And they tried to do it where I could do it and get paid.
Right.
But the city said we don't have any budget for a chaplain.
At this time.
That's right.
They didn't know that God had a bigger plan.
And so I did it as a volunteer. We started a 501c3. At the time it was called Chattahoochee Valley Jail Ministry.
Okay, Chattahoochee Valley Jail Ministry. Because I want you to lay the history out.
That's right.
You didn't just get where you are today. It was a lot of work, sacrifice, and as a volunteer. Unpaid work on this side. Of course, you get a star on your crown on the other side. But unpaid. Yeah, okay.
So started as a volunteer.
Mhm.
About 9 months in, the sheriff came and said, I'm worried about this economy. How much you're going to be able to raise in order to be a volunteer in here and still pay your bills?
Right.
And he said, so we're going to ask the city one more time if they'll put a chaplain. He said, but now we have evidence that when the chaplain's in the jail, there's fewer fights, there's
Right.
fewer violence on staff or other inmates.
Right.
And so we think if we added a re-entry program under
Mhm.
the chaplain's office, that would justify the salary. Now the
Okay.
city said no again.
Oh my goodness, they didn't have the vision at that time.
So they came to me one day and said, we've got open CO slots. And if we put you in one of those CO slots.
CO is a correctional officer.
That's right. If we put you in a CO slot but never made you work the floor and never made you work buttons.
Right.
And he said, so we'll just take that as a place to get you started.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take that job? And I'm like, sure.
Okay.
And so I became a city employee in July of 2010.
Okay.
And then we started to birth, the fatherhood dorm and the veterans
I
dorm.
know, the GED, it's just, every time I came there, we did the show inside the jail. It was just amazing to see the work. Because you could see and feel the difference, because I worked in the Calhoun State Prison. I taught a college class there from Andrew College. So you could feel and see the difference in the fellowship among the people in all of your work.
So, I think, but we had this horrible moment.
Mm-hmm.
A guy was probably one of the stars of the faith-based room.
Okay.
This guy memorized, if a minister didn't show up one day because he was sick, this guy could actually do it.
Right.
I figured if anybody's going to get out and do good, it's him.
Right.
The very night he got out of jail, bought drugs from an undercover officer, got arrested and brought back in.
Really?
I was brokenhearted.
I know, because he was your success story.
That's right.
Right, but God had a plan for him too. Always. Sometimes the detour is taking us where we need to go to get what we need. So what we're going to do now, go to our first break to our sponsors, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors. Straightforward is brought to you by State Senator Ed Harbison, serving the citizens of Georgia's 15th Senatorial District and on the front lines for veterans every day. Progressive Funeral Home, family owned and operated since 1952. The George Ford legacy of high standards continues today in the compassionate and professional services provided, a touch of dignity for those who care. Progressive Funeral Home, 4235 St. Mary's Road, trusted by generations. And welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing this conversation with my awesome friend Neil, always in the vineyard, making a difference, changing lives, have had some wonderful success stories, and I want you to continue that conversation of that favorite person you had and you were so happy about that success. They went out, got arrested, and came back, but that was a part of God's plan because it birthed something else.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And so it dawned on us that same playgrounds, same playmates, you're
Right.
going to repeat the same behavior.
Exactly.
And he didn't have a place to go.
Mm-hmm.
So what we knew then immediately was we've got to provide some kind of, when we were kids, we played tag, there was a tree. If you were
Right.
on that tree, you were safe.
Safe. That's right.
So
That's
we
right.
needed a safe tree.
Yes.
But we were going to call it the safe house.
The safe house. Okay.
And so we opened a little shotgun shack across the street from the jail amongst all the bonding companies.
Right.
Called it the safe house. Served lunch there every day.
Mhm.
Nobody tapped a watch and said, you've been here too long.
It's time to go.
We would
Right.
sit down and talk with you, figure out where the barriers were. If you just needed a place to come and be safe, sit down and enjoy it.
Exactly.
And so that's how we started the outside ministry.
Okay, so that's the beginning of Safe House.
That's right.
Okay, and then it has grown to where you're serving how many people?
Oh, 1,000+ people every month.
I know, because I have driven by, and in the mornings you see people, a lot of them have phones, and you'll see them Facebook living, and I've seen people that I knew, from my old village, and I'm happy that you're here. So you had programs and things inside of the jail. And so when did you leave the jail to do this full time?
So truthfully, from about 2010 until 2021,
Okay.
I stayed in the jail. My job description was creating entry back into the community.
Okay,
So,
re-entry program for ex-offenders.
that's right.
Okay.
So
So
we
all of
hired-
this got married together.
That's right.
Okay, great.
And we were able to hire some people who could run the outside centers while I was chaplaining in the jail.
Okay.
And so that's how the ministry got born.
Mm-hmm.
In about 2016, there was a freeze actually 2014, there was a freeze in January that got down to like 10 degrees.
I remember.
And we decided that we were going to open.
Mm-hmm.
And then we heard that the Red Cross and the city were going to open the Culver Center.
Right.
And so we backed off.
Right.
That night, a guy named Paul Garner
Mm-hmm.
died on the streets of Columbus,
I remember.
Georgia.
Right.
A Baker
High school graduate. Right.
And so Paul had tried to get into a shelter. They had been drinking.
And they didn't let him in.
And he couldn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sat down on a bus bench and took a nap. And then, of course, he was so drunk, he was dehydrated. He never
Right.
woke up.
Wow.
Because...
And I remember that story. Yes.
And the warming center never opened.
Really?
Between everybody, all the moving parts, nobody moved in the right direction, and that center didn't open. And so, even though Paul probably wouldn't have known that the safe house was across the street from the jail,
Exactly.
we just said, all right, we'll never do it again.
Right.
So we opened the next night. 2 weeks later,
So the homeless could come in from the cold.
at the safe house.
At the safe
the
house.
original.
At the original.
That's right.
Right.
And so the next week, there was 2 nights in a row that were going to be 18 degrees.
Mhm.
We opened again, and both the 911 dispatch, the sheriff's dispatch, all knew that we were there. So if they saw somebody on the street, they could snatch them up, bring them over there, and get them off the streets.
How
so
wonderful.
we cooperated and fixed the problem.
Right.
The next week, it snowed. Now, I pay attention to weather because I'm from Miami.
And you were not
You
ready.
do not.
You're from a tropical climate, so you wasn't down with all this cold
Ice
stuff.
goes in the freezer, not the water.
Okay,
So-
yes.
So the pastor at this church then called up and he said, "Can I help?" And I said, "Well, how about your building?"
Right,
I said, "I can't get more than 15 people."
right, right.
So he said, "Well, move in." So we moved in. The Red Cross came over and actually packed up all of our crock pots and tools,
Really?
brought them over here.
And so where are we in this beautiful church?
Oh, in the sanctuary of the old Rose Hill
Of the
Methodist
old Rose Hill.
That's right.
Yes, isn't that a blessing?
And so
Because
we,
see, God still had a plan.
and he hadn't even done it.
I know, how about that? I love it, I love it.
So we moved in here on a Monday. It snowed on Tuesday. We closed down Thursday afternoon when the temperature finally made it. But we served over 400 meals.
Really?
We had as many as 80 people sleeping in the building during those 2 nights that it
It
was,
was so cold outside.
and nobody died.
Nobody died.
And so then we the church said, "Why don't you stay here? Don't go back. We'll share the building. It'll give you more space."
Yes.
And then that became, so we moved the safe house into here. We worked together with the church. Over time, and it was a couple of years later, the church had voted they weren't going to stay at church. And so they said, "Stay here."
Really?
And then we, through the grace of God and the blessings of some amazing people, we were able to purchase this church from the United Methodist District. And we kind of honor it because we still keep that old beautiful
The
sign
beautiful
out
sign
there.
is out there, and that's what I was saying. You know, it's Rose Hill United Methodist Church. People know it. It's a landmark for folks that want to write you a $2 billion check. It's easily identifiable right here on Hamilton Road. You can pass daily and see people that have congregated in the yard, and you're feeding people, taking care of people, and that's your charge. That's all of our charges for those of us who say that we are Christians.
That's right.
We're supposed to take care of the least of them, not just our friends, but the people that really need help.
Put some walk on the talk.
Put some walk on the talk. I love that. I love that. And so, how have you been able to manage this? It's not free to feed people and pay the lights and how are we doing that? Do we have big fundraisers? How does that work?
So for the most part, we're a United Way agency.
Okay.
We do fundraising in the community.
Okay, so now this is a part of United Way.
Yes.
When you first started, it
No.
wasn't. Okay, so then over time, it's under that umbrella.
Yes.
So when people are asked to give on their jobs, the reason I'm going through this is so when people say, well, I don't want to give any money from my check, because a lot of corporations have people that ask in the workplace for folks to donate. My husband did it for Procter & Gamble. So they need to know these are things in the community. It's more than the Boys and Girls Club and those agencies, which are great.
Mm-hmm.
But this is something that, but for the grace of God, there goes I.
That's right.
It could be any of us. Okay, and so, but we still take private donations.
Yes, ma'am.
Direct. They can walk in here any day and just bring you a check.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And so we do have services here. We have professional staff. So before we get into that part, we're going to take a break, go to our sponsors, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors. The law offices of Siobhan S. Thomas and Associates, 201 9th Street in Uptown Columbus, 706-350-7232. A veteran-owned law firm dedicated to equal rights and justice for all. Make Siobhan S. Thomas and Associates your first choice for legal services. Visit SiobhanThomas.com. The Miley Agency, 4903 Armour Road. Gerald L. Miley and William Ripsinger have been providing comprehensive reviews and insuring families in Georgia and Alabama for more than 50 years. The Miley Agency will work non-stop to find you the best policy at the best price. You can rest assured that your information is secure, confidential, and protected. Call today at 706-996-2045. Adjuster Source 101. Sign up today for the Insurance Claims Adjuster virtual course. The All Lines license allows an adjuster to work claims in residential, commercial, inland marine, ocean marine, and workers' comp, Georgia property and casualty, Alabama property and casualty, and additional states. For more information, call 470-724-1050 or info@adjustersource101.com. And welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing this very, very wonderful, heart-touching conversation with my friend Neil, who worked so hard over the years. I want everybody that's watching this, our viewers, our friends, supporters, I know the community will contribute, but faith without works is dead. So if you can't come over here and volunteer, you can always write a check. We love certified funds from the bank because we know if they're certified from the bank, it's good, it's real good. But you do have some wonderful programs here, and you have one where you have led the way in the southeastern United States. Share that with us.
So 85 to 88% of people that are incarcerated in this country are there because of drugs and alcohol.
Right.
It is the number one problem that we have to deal with. And so as a community, when we started to grow Safehouse Ministries, we started to realize that if we don't impact substance abuse, then you can clean the water up on the floor, but if you don't turn
It's
off
a
the
vicious
spigot,
cycle. Right.
that's right. So we made a commitment to create a drug program that was state of the art, that would provide the best possible services. So we went and hired Cheryl Sack.
The legendary Cheryl Sack.
Right.
I met her back in the 90s when we were all very young people back then, and she was doing her thing back then. Yeah, helping people on substance and being a wonderful sponsor. She and her husband Charles. That's how I met them, because they were working with someone that I knew from my community.
Right.
Yes.
So we hired Cheryl as the clinical director and created Tomorrow's Hope.
Tomorrow's Hope is the name of the program.
That's the name of the program.
Okay.
And so it started in this building. I mean, in addition to Tomorrow's Hope, we even have our own drug lab.
Really?
So that we can test all of our shelter clients, all of our
I didn't
program
know that.
clients.
So you don't have to send that out to LabCorp or anything?
No, we have our own lab in here so that we have quality work. We even get some referrals from courts because somebody wants to appeal, so they can send them over to our lab.
Okay.
But Tomorrow's Hope has these credentials, if you will.
Okay.
First of all, we are state licensed by the Georgia Department of Community Health as an intensive outpatient substance abuse program.
Really?
Second of all, we are CARF accredited, and that is the national body that accredits substance abuse programs.
Okay, so you're recognized at the national level as being a quality program.
That's right.
All right, that's amazing.
And we're the only one that's free that I'm aware of in the southeastern United States.
Free.
Absolutely.
And other
free.
folks have to pay for this quality of care and
That's
treatment.
right. What we're offering here, people are paying $30,000 and $50,000 for at state-of-the-art places.
Mm-hmm.
Our clientele doesn't have $30,000 to $50,000.
No.
And they deserve the best possible treatment available.
Yes.
And so does our community.
Yes.
But we have one extra little thing that we do because of my past.
Okay.
So every time in my active addiction that I felt like now's the time to stop, I would start calling treatment programs.
Okay.
And I always heard we have a wait list.
Really?
2 weeks, ballpark. Well, no addict is not going to use in 2 weeks waiting
Right.
for a bed.
Right.
Then
Right.
I don't have a place to do that.
And this was like 30 years
So-
of cocaine.
Mhm. So we made another commitment that we'll hire another counselor before we create a wait list.
Okay.
So if somebody calls up and they need help, then we're going to provide them help.
That's amazing.
Period. Now, if they're homeless, we have shelters that we can house them, so now they're not homeless while they're in treatment.
Yes.
If they need a higher level of care, we will give them a place to stay while we get them into a residential treatment program. And if they need the wait list, then we can stay with us.
So you have all of these support wraparound services. I'm an old social worker, so that's what we always looking for, the wraparound services. So you've tried to put every safety net that you could within your power to try to help the person that's trying to be clean, stay clean, and get the help that they need.
And one extra thing.
What's that?
So as we began to grow as a ministry, and we started putting our ear to the ground and talking to people in our community, the biggest problem that we found was not homelessness in Columbus South, it's substance abuse.
Yes.
It's 2 people working in the house and the paycheck goes to the liquor store or the drug dealer on Friday.
Right.
And if we continue to do that, we're going to be evicted.
Exactly.
And so Tomorrow's Hope last November moved to Victory Drive and to Airview.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, because Airview has that DAV or something right there behind there. I've been to events there over the years.
And you got Budgetel right next door.
Right.
So we moved down to South Columbus in order to provide that same free treatment program, and it's the intensive outpatient. So if Neil has been hitting the liquor store with the paycheck, Neil doesn't have to give up his job.
Okay.
Now the family can stay in the house because Neil's still working. And if you're working a day job, class at night. If you're working a night job, class in the day.
Okay.
And so any person who's struggling with a substance abuse problem that needs to keep that job to keep that family knit
together. Because we want to keep families together.
And then they have this, then they can come to us.
That's amazing. See, I didn't know that you had expanded the outreach and services to the South Side. And of course, we have a lot of things, elements there. A lot of the dance, the strip clubs, a lot of things are specific to the South Side. And if you haven't been down Victory Drive, in a minute, you can just ride sometimes in the evening and you can see people moving about and they're, have an active addiction. Right.
So we need to be aggressive in that department. And you can't ask somebody to catch a bus to go get treatment.
No, that's unrealistic.
So, and if I'm working a job and I'm working a job on the South End, so we're talking to HR counsel, HR directors. Federal law says that if I go into my boss and say I have a substance abuse problem and I need help, they can't fire me.
Right.
So they have to help. They have to help facilitate me getting some help. And so, hey, HR director, pick up the phone and call Tomorrow's Hope. Call Safehouse Ministries.
And so you are in the process of educating some of our employers, because that's why we have all the EEO stuff posted, in the break rooms and companies and things like that.
That's right.
Well, what we're going to do, this is so important, and I don't want to take up all of your time, but I got so many things that I need for you to share. I don't want to leave anybody behind. I know, and as an old social worker, I work with children that came from 5 public housing projects. I've seen them come into the schools with so many social problems. And again, it goes back to active addiction, substance, all of that. And we have to start looking at the bigger picture and make sure that we make folks aware of what's available. A lot of folks don't want to go the traditional route. They might want to go directly to you because you're so approachable. You're so humble. You share your own story. You're not looking down your nose at somebody else. And see, that's why a lot of people won't even go to church, because they already feel judged before they go. So what we're going to do, we're going to end part 1 right here, and then we will come back with part 2. All right? Okay. This has been straightforward. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Until next time, be blessed.
What up, world? What's up, Columbus? Be sure to tune in every Sunday, Straightforward with Gloria Strode, right here on NBC 38.